Tirgamaya Prityorma Amrutam Gamaya Aviravirmageti Rudrayatte Takshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the divine consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. So the topic for the retreat is 4 basic practices. There are 4 basic practices in Vedanta, as many of you are already familiar. In Sanskrit, it is called sadhana chatushtaya. Literally translated, it simply means 4 practices. Sadhana is spiritual practice. Chatushtaya is 4. Now, I've inserted the word basic because they are basic. And I want to say a few words about why it's important to think about these 4 practices. And if we look at our own spiritual life, how it began and how it has evolved. And we really have, each of us will have a very unique story to tell about how our life has evolved over the years. But we also need to see, what does my present spiritual practice consist in? And for many of us, it will seem, well, I do my prayer in the morning and I do my japa as taught to me by my teacher. Maybe we do a little bit of studies, some reading, and can take many different forms. And sometimes we also have this question about how much progress I'm making, and is there a way to accelerate my progress? There is an incident in the Sri Ramakrishna's conversations. One place he says that there is this Sri Ramakrishna is speaking in his room, inside his room, and there are all these people sitting in front of him. And there is also one elderly person sitting in the room, uh, doing on his japa, on his mala. And it's kind of a little bit of an odd scene, because normally when someone like Ramakrishna is speaking, we would expect everyone would sit and hear him say. Anyway, this one person probably didn't have any other good time to do japa. So he's sitting in a corner and doing japa while Ramakrishna is speaking with people. Then Sri Ramakrishna pauses and then looks at that elderly person who is doing japa and then passes this remark. He says, why is it that people do so much japa and meditation, but still nothing changes in their life? And sometimes we might hear, it's not that Ramakrishna is only saying that to that one person, but that kind of question can come in our own life as well. And then Sri Ramakrishna answers it by saying, there isn't that inner longing for God. So it's not enough to be doing our spiritual practices mechanically or just as a matter of duty. Yes, there are some days we feel overwhelmed with faith and devotion. Some days it's mechanical and it's kind of ups and downs it goes. But an important reason why sometimes we might feel we are stuck, that we are not making enough progress, is that maybe we haven't paid enough attention to these basic practices. So there is a direct correlation between the quality of our spiritual practice and how much attention we are paying to these basic practices. So that's one important thing to keep in mind. In fact, spiritual fitness is the most important thing in spiritual life. So in order to attain the blessings of spiritual life, we need to keep on becoming more and more fit. If we were completely 100% fit on the first day, then of course we would become enlightened on the very first day. And so clearly, if we have not become enlightened yet, that means we are on the way to full fitness. But whatever degree of fitness we have now, we have to still wonder, what more things should I do in order to make myself more fit? And that brings us back again to the basic practices. There is a story, of course, in the Upanishads about how the same teaching given to different students doesn't necessarily produce the same effect. That those who are fit will understand the teaching, those who are not so fit may not understand anything at all, and those who are totally unfit will totally misunderstand the teaching. And so we are somewhere on this spectrum from total being not fit to being completely fit. And that's again brings us back to these four basic practices. Then these are mentioned in one of the oldest Vedanta texts. So this has been a part of the tradition for centuries, for thousands of years. And for those of you who had a chance to look at that book, not just the book that was referred to, but any of the other Vedanta texts, these are mentioned in the Vivek Chudamani of Shankaracharya, in the Vedanta Sara, many of these other small Vedanta texts also. Usually they'll begin with this sadhana chatushtaya, the four basic practices. And the four basic practices are simple, easy to enumerate. The first one is called viveka or discernment. The second is called vairagya or non-attachment. The third practice is really a set of 6 practices. So they are not really, it's one, but there are 6 which are interconnected, and that's why they are all treated as one. And so to kind of enumerate it quickly, it's called Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Samadhana, and Shraddha. Shama is restraint of the mind. Dama is restraint of the senses. Uparati is that when the senses, in spite of the restraint, because of past habit, when the senses go out, to kind of bring them back in. Then forbearance, a concentration, deep faith. These are the 6 practices. So these, because they are all very closely interconnected, they are treated as one. And the fourth and the last one is intense longing for God, intense desire for freedom. In Sanskrit, it's called mumukshutva. So these are the 4 practices that we will try to take a quick look during this today, tomorrow, and on Sunday evening. So within these 3 times that we will meet, we will try to take a look at these 4 practices. And then, of course, whatever questions and ideas you might have, we can still have a discussion. And I would much prefer that I speak less and have more kind of an interactive way of doing it. Because Vedanta is one subject. I can speak for 10 hours if you want, but neither you have the patience nor I will be able to do it. And so it's not about just giving a talk and everyone listening to it. What we want is a more interactive experience. And so whatever thinking you have done on the subject, whatever you already know about the subject, or if some of you would have had a chance to take a look at that book, I don't need to go into too many intricate details because I'm going to assume that most of you are familiar with the basics of the subject. And so what I will do today is take a look at the first 2 of these, Viveka and Vairagya. Viveka, often some of the older books usually translated the word Viveka as discrimination. Understood in a right context, it's a good translation. But discrimination also, taken out of context, it has a very negative vibe to it. And so a better translation of that word is discernment. And discernment involves looking deeply, looking clearly. We see that taking any decisions in life, making choices in life, if we do it slowly, carefully, looking deeply at things, then the chances of making mistakes are less. If we oftentimes decide something hurriedly without thinking, then oftentimes later we come to regret our decisions. And so Viveka primarily means pausing and then looking deeply and then taking a decision. And decision here would mean looking at things. When we look at the world, it's just filled with all kinds of objects, all kinds of ideas, all kinds of experiences. So essentially, the ability to look deeply and distinguish between what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is healthy, what is unhealthy, what is in my interest, what is not in my interest. This kind of a separation, almost like a filtering process, is the ability to practice viveka. And once we develop this habit, now surely there are times in life when we may not have the luxury of pausing, looking, thinking, because sometimes some decisions have to be taken instantly. And I understand that. But there are most things in life, we don't have to decide within a second or so. Most things in life can wait. We don't have to decide everything immediately. So we need to take our time to pause and to take every decision carefully and thoughtfully. If we do that, we will regret less in life. We'll feel more happy with the decisions we take. But once we cultivate this habit of pausing, looking deeply, and deciding, it's a little bit of a change in the way we do things in life. But once we do that, we begin to see things that we had not noticed before because we are now taking our time. Some of the minor, subtle nuances of things miss us when we just do everything in a hurried sort of way. So if we take our time, then we will notice things we had not seen before. We will begin to start asking questions we had not asked before. Many of the things that we take for granted in the beginning, we'll begin to say, no, let me question it. And one of the things, of course, that we take for granted is reality. And then we might begin asking ourselves, well, what is real? How do you define what is real? How do you define what is unreal? We look out at the world and then ask, how did this all start? And we might still go back to Big Bang and whatever other theories we can read in science, but still the question will come, how did it begin? Because all of these theories always leave many questions unanswered. And so then when we look out at the world, we look at ourselves and say, well, who am I? We look at the body, look at the mind. So asking, is this me? Is this me? That is also a part of viveka, also part of discernment. Discerning who I am really, discerning what is the nature of this world, trying to discern whether there is any other reality beyond the reality of the world that we experience from morning to night and then morning again. All these questions will come under the practice of viveka. And it's the very first among the four major practices. Because all of these other practices, they, they spring from viveka. And, and it's interesting in itself. Therefore, one of the greatest teachers of Vedanta in our own times is Vivekananda. So showing the joy, the Swamiji's name is the joy of discernment. And so we could ask ourselves, if I want to now practice discernment, are there any steps I can take? And then they're simple, they're kind of common sense steps. One is simply before taking any decision in life, definitely major decisions in life, but certainly even minor decisions in life, if we can just quiet our mind a little bit, Because if there are 100 things going on in the mind, then there is a likelihood of that we might not make the right decision. So quieting the mind, and then as much as possible to keep aside, even if temporarily, our biases and prejudices that we have. All of us have them. They may not be necessarily very harmful in themselves, but very few of us, only I think the enlightened beings, are able to see the world, completely with the mind, with as if it's completely transparent. Many of us see the world with kind of tinted glasses. The lens of our mind is filled with certain fixed ideas, and that colors our vision of the world. And so before taking any decision, we need to at least make an effort to keep our own personal biases and prejudices aside, and then take a decision and then decide. And even before finalizing a decision, a devotee will say, we're going to go and pray before the altar, or pray before Thakurman Swamiji, that with my little intellect, I feel this is the right thing to do. But then seek divine guidance that may this decision I take may be the right decision. So that would be a good way to go forward. And that's putting viveka, discernment, into practice. In the beginning, and it applies in every field of life, even in the food that we eat. Is the food that I eat merely tasty or it's also healthy? Now, sometimes it's difficult to, not that difficult, but oftentimes people find it difficult to combine tasty food with healthy food. Someone said that nothing makes me so sick as health foods, which is not really true. So sometimes, because why do people eat junk food? Some people do it out of just economic reason. Junk food tends to be cheaper, inexpensive. But it also, even people who can afford good food, prefer junk food because to many of them it appears more tasty. So learning the art of cooking a healthy meal, which is also tasty, will actually go forward in helping in the practice of discernment itself. And so discernment, viveka, therefore, applies in every field of life. The food that we eat, the books that we read, the company that we keep, in every case. Now, I've used the word good and bad. Now, those are kind of very relative terms. What is good for one may not be good for somebody else. So how do we define what is good and what is not good? There are several ways to do it. A devotee might say, anything that takes me nearer to God is good. Everything that makes me forget God, forget my spiritual ideal, is bad. Or, as Swami Vivekananda used to say, anything that makes me strong, whether it is physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, anything that makes me strong is good. Anything that makes me weak in any of these ways, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, that is not good. So we have to have our own yardstick about measuring what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, and be true to that. And once this ability to separate the good from the bad is viveka. And therefore, the second practice, vairagya, non-attachment, comes from viveka, because once I'm able to separate good from bad, right from wrong, then I should detach myself from everything that is wrong, everything that is bad, everything that is unhealthy, and attach myself with everything that is good, everything that is healthy, everything that is positive. And that's how both discernment and non-attachment are connected. Now, sometimes the word vairagya gets translated into English as detachment, which is in itself fine, except that the word in when you kind of the English word detachment has some kind of a negative connotation attached to it because you just think detached means somehow I'm kind of separating myself from other people. And the word literally, I mean, if you go to the literal meaning of vairagya, the viraga, V prefix, in the sense of vigata, that is that which has gone. Raga is attachment. So when the attachment is gone, therefore non-attachment is a better way to translate vairagya. Because it's the natural human tendency to attach itself to everything that we like. And this is interesting. We think that we are detaching ourselves from everything that we don't like, which is not true. Because if we dislike something, we are attached to that thing through our dislike. If we hate something, we are not detached from it. It is our hatred that attaches us to that thing. So we are attached to everything, to that which we like, to that which we dislike. A non-attachment means finding a way to know that somehow we are not connected with that. And therefore, the word non-attachment needs to be understood in the right way. And I mean, it's pretty obvious. When we are separated right from wrong, good from bad, healthy from unhealthy, we choose what is good, we choose what is right, we choose what is healthy. But then taking that discernment to a deeper level, I said we even discern between what is real and what is unreal. And that Viveka then says this body that is continually changing. Of course, when we were born, we weighed only a few pounds. Now we weigh a lot more. So physically, we have changed a lot and will continue to change. Similarly, mentally, the kind of thoughts, emotions, and feelings and ideas and everything that we had at different stages of life, it changes. How we thought as teenagers is not how we think in our middle age or on our advanced age. So mentally we are changing, physically we are changing, and yet we feel I'm still the same person. Something has remained unchanged in me. And so discernment would mean what is that unchanging part within me? If the body mind are changing, and that which is changing is eventually perishable. And we all recognize it. We have encountered the possibility of death. We have seen many people known to us, close to us or not close to us, dying. So death is not a kind of a unknown factor in our life. What sometimes we don't like to think about is the possibility that this body in which I dwell will also one day perish. And what Viveka will help us do is to see even when the body goes away, I'll still be there. Because I am not the body, I am someone inside the body. That the mind will have its ups and downs. Sometimes the mind will, its highs and lows. The mind can be very happy, the mind can be totally miserable. But those are qualities of the mind. But I am different from the mind. The mind can go any which way, but I am steady, I am unchanging. So discovering that the real me, is different from the body and mind, that is what Viveka will help me do. But once Viveka does that, what Vairagya should do is that I should pay special attention to the real me, the Atman. And not that I should disregard the body and mind, but recognize that taking good care of the body and mind is not for the sake of body and mind, but in order to preserve the Atma which is within. So everything in life is important. Good health is important. Good mental health is important. But we need to understand what is the purpose behind it. And that main purpose should never be forgotten. And so, what do we do with one other important point about attachment is it can get a little bit confusing because in our life we love and attachment look very same. We said, oh, I love my children, I'm attached to my children. Might seem to be, well, it's the same thing. Uh, well, in a casual conversation, maybe yes. But if you look at it technically, attachment and love are two different things. Attachment is primarily about me. Attachment is primarily this I. Attachment has a sense of owning people. When I say these are my friend, this is my family, that is attachment. I'm making things my possessions. So it's about me. Love is just the opposite. Love is about you, the object of my love. So that's one major difference between love and attachment. And the second difference is in the effect it produces. Love will produce only joy and freedom. That's the characteristic of love. But attachment, while it can seem to produce joy now and then, but it also occasionally or quite often sometimes it gives rise to many of the negative thinkings. Like sometimes there is anger, there is suspicion, there is fear, there is irritation. So all of our relationships, there is a lot of joy, real joy and support, but there is also these other negativities. And that is because most of our relationships are a mixture of love and attachment. And what we want is slowly, if you're able to recognize, there also Vivek is needed. If I'm able to distinguish between love and attachment, and the more I'm able to remove those attachments, and only love remains in a relationship, it can be endlessly joyful. It can be endlessly freeing. And it's therefore important to recognize the distinction between love and attachment. And however ironical it might sound, but the truth is that the more non-detachment we have, the more we'll be able to love. I know it sounds contradictory, but because primarily attachment and non-attachment is connected with the ego. Attachment primarily means I'm attached to my ego. And then these people are mine, these things are mine. That is what attachment is. But love is not connected with the ego. Love actually gets the ego out. As long as there is ego, there is no real love. And so when the ego gets out of the way, that is non-attachment. I'm not attached to the ego. And then I have the spontaneity, the freedom to love wholeheartedly. And so this is an important point to keep in mind. So how do we bring this value and the practice of non-attachment in our daily life? And there are two basic ways that Swami Vivekananda mentions. One is for those who believe in God, those who are devotees, he says, do every work out of love for God. Be an instrument of the divine. Don't think that anything in life belongs to you. Everything belongs to God. Even we don't belong to ourselves. And so if we look at all of the things that are around us, the people around us, the objects around us, the things around us, and say, none of this is mine. When we came into the world, we came with nothing. And when we go out of this, we go with nothing. In between, we have this period of delusion, thinking this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. And then if you just little bit of viveka, little bit of discernment, we say, right, nothing is really mine. But everything, a devotee will say, everything belongs to God. But God has given all these things to me to take care of it. So I will take good care of the people around me. I'll take care of my family. I'll take care of my friends. I'll take care of everything, but never forgetting that they all belong to God. I love God. That is why I do this out of love for God. We will see our way of looking at ourselves, our way of looking at the duties and responsibilities we'll have, will undergo a big revolution. And it will be an extremely wonderful change in life, to be able to love everyone freely without getting attached and bound and with all the negativities that it brings with us. And what about those who don't see themselves as devotees, who don't have this feeling about, oh, I'm doing it out of love for God? Because some people temperamentally and don't do that. And for them, Swami Vivekananda says, do work for work's sake. Towards the Gita, towards the end of the Gita, Krishna one place says, Karyam ityeva yat karma, which means do what is good for no other reason other than it is good. Do what is right because it is the right thing to do. Don't do anything with any kind of expectation. Don't expect even gratitude. Don't expect even a thank you. Sometimes we are very beggarly. We do a lot of good work, but we also expect at the very least the person should be grateful to me, say thank you to me. And if someone doesn't show that gratitude, is not thankful, then we get upset and say, I helped that person so much and look what this person had done to me. That is what binds me. That's what brings sorrow and pain in life. If with every good thing that we do it as a free will offering. In fact, the very people that we help, even if they come and stab us in the back, and even then, if I'm still able to not have any negative feelings about them, then we have truly practicing non-attachment. So we see that while in a superficial sort of way, we can now understand what non-attachment is, the more subtle levels we go, we recognize how tough it is, how difficult it can be. And so these are the two things that we need to keep in mind. The first two among the four practices is discernment and non-attachment. And there is a lot that can be said about it, but our time is limited. So I think I will stop here now so that we'll have more time for dialogue. So feel free to say what you want. Maybe if you want to kind of, since there are many of us here, you want to make it a little bit more orderly, then whoever wants